Well, hello there, Combatant Baptist. It is just so good to be with you today, albeit virtually. I have such fond memories of being with you for your joint service. What seems a lifetime ago, doesn't it? But it was actually just over a year ago. And I'm so gutted not to be with you in person today. But isn't technology amazing? Hasn't the church in this last season responded in a wonderful way? As part of my role at the Evangelical Alliance, I have the privilege of hearing stories from across the UK of how the church across the nations have been meeting together, supporting one another, caring for the vulnerable. Thank you for the part that you've played in that. Thanks for sticking together. Thanks for keeping on being part of church, and thanks for holding on to the hope that we have in Jesus. I'd love to bring you today some verses that have really sustained me during this pandemic. I think God wants to inspire us with some words from Jeremiah. His life straddles a time when his nation have been taken into exile. They have been uprooted from the place where they were and taken into a place, a new normal. They are asking, like so many of us are during this pandemic, what is going on? So let's read together. I invite you, if you've got a Bible where you are, to turn to Jeremiah chapter 17 with me and read a couple of verses starting from verse 7. God says this: "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit." In an uprooted world, the image God gives us is rootedness. Do you know one of the most amazing things about following Jesus is that he gives us firm roots to grow from as we live our lives. He gives us a firm foundation on which to stand. He gives us a certain hope in an uncertain world. And as I observe what is happening across the country, as I lead the church where I live in Birmingham, as I seek to sustain my own walk with the Lord in these times, this image of rootedness keeps coming back to me. When lockdown was lifted last summer, we went on holiday with some friends and we were walking around these kind of gardens in this forest, as you do. And we came across this huge tree and it had on it this little plaque that said this was the tallest tree in the United Kingdom. Now, I don't know whether that was true or not, but my friend, who's a great nature lover, told me that there is as much tree under the ground as there is above the ground. Rootedness is really important. In this passage, we read that there is something happening to the tree and something else happening with the tree. What's happening to the tree is that it is being battered. Heat is coming. It's in a year of drought. But what's happening with the tree is that somehow, despite its external circumstances, it's thriving. It does not fear. It's not failing to bear fruit. It's not just surviving, it's thriving. What's happening with the tree is not affected by what is happening to the tree. And in our lives at the moment, there's something happening to us. We've got this common experience. It's a bit like the trees. It feels like we're being battered. The heat's cranking up. It's a pressure cooker. We're asking, what is going on? So many of us have faced a year of drought and pain and loss. That's what's been happening to us. But what's been happening with us? God's encouragement to us today is that we can not just survive this time, but we can thrive in it. We can be free of the fear that would overwhelm us. We can continue to bear fruit. But to do those things, we have to be rooted. And what I want to do today is encourage us with two things that we can be rooted in. There are two other places in the Bible, in the New Testament, that refer to this image of rootedness. And here's what they say. The first is in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 17, where Paul is praying for the church. And he prays that you, being rooted and established in love, might have power, and here's the key bit, together with all of God's holy people, to grasp how wide and how long and how deep is the love of Christ. Here's the deal. We are rooted together. A single root doesn't keep the tree up. And I don't know about you, but I found that we desperately need each other in this season. Life is not an individual pursuit. It's a team game. And I know this because over the last few months I've lived it. In January, my brother-in-law died. In June, my mum died. She was my last surviving parent. And do you know, we didn't cook an evening meal for almost 2 months during that period last summer. Our kitchen looked like a florist, our living room like Clinton's cards. We were rooted in love. Because when the chips are down, the church comes good. We were loved like no other time. We represented this beautiful community of being rooted in love. And during this time, we will remember loads of things. But we will especially remember the friendships that saw us through. And my encouragement to you today in Comberton is to throw yourself into friendship. This time of being socially distant makes it loads more difficult in some ways. But it means that friendship, we need more. Don't stop tuning into church. When you're zoomed out, choose to go to that midweek house group or that virtual coffee morning. Reach out to people, drop a text, write a postcard. These things will keep you rooted in these disconnected times. We need to be people who find a home to belong to and relationships to stick with. But we don't just need a home to belong to at this time. We need to be rooted in a hope to believe in. The second New Testament passage that talks about being rooted is found in Colossians chapter 2. Paul writes to the church in Colossae that just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, Colossians 2 verse 6, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. Paul's insistence throughout the letter to the Colossians is that our hope is in Jesus. Our deepest hope during this time. Do you know, there's loads of places, hopes being talked about in so many different ways. But as Christians, as followers of the King of Kings, our deepest hope is not in a vaccine. It's not in herd immunity. It's not even in the NHS. It's not in economic recovery. Our deepest hope is not in a new normal, an old normal, or going back to normal. Our hope is in Jesus. And I do believe that at this time, people are searching for hope. Do you know, during this time, there have been some amazing statistics of what's been going on. 1 in 4 people have been to online church in one form or another during this time. We've just been running Alpha Archery. We've had twice as many people on our Alpha course as we've ever had before. 1 in 20 people across the UK who've never prayed before have started praying. And I've seen this as a frustrated evangelist as I've been running during lockdown. I decided with working from home, I was eating more and I could either eat less or run more. And I've been running more. And as I've been doing so, I've been challenged, just prompted as I've been going on, just to kind of offer to pray for people. And I don't always get that right. And I sometimes say no to the challenge. But there are sometimes moments where I've been offered to pray for people. And do you know, during the whole time of offering to pray for random people in the street, there's only been one person who's ever said no. Everybody has just been so open at this time. And it represents that people are searching for hope. Prayed for some funny characters during the time. I prayed for one guy. I closed my eyes to pray, which was a bit of a bad move because this guy walked off mid-prayer, which was great. Prayed for another couple called Max and Ria. It was 7:30 one Wednesday morning. Max was already drinking a can of beer. And I don't think he'd ever prayed before. But when I finished, he was so overwhelmed by the fact that I'd prayed for him that he decided to try to return the favour. And what came out, let's say, was not exactly from the Book of Common Prayer, but it was beautiful in the Lord's ears. There is an openness at this time. And if you're a Christian today, my encouragement to you is to reach out to people at this time, knowing that they are probably more desperate to explore faith than you realised. Do you know, I'm an enthusiastic follower of Jesus. I'm sure you can tell that. But I still find sharing my faith with others difficult. But you know, it's worth it. I talked about Alpha. Some of our best friends have came on Alpha last term. It was really difficult to invite them, I've got to say. I really like to be liked. I find it awkward often having that conversation. But this couple came to Alpha and they loved it. Today they still wouldn't call themselves Christians, but they've taken another step on the journey. My encouragement to you today is whatever you're doing to share faith at this moment, crank it up a notch. Because people need a home to belong to and a hope to believe in. If this helps, this big banner behind me is my book that came out last March. It came out last year. I've been hearing some great stories of Christians who wouldn't count themselves as great evangelists, but they've found it really helpful in helping them share their faith in a way that connects with those around them. Let's be people who are hope bringers at this time. I'm going to finish with a story from my son, who is my current inspiration in being a hope bringer and having a hope to believe in during this time. He has been praying for his mates at school to come to faith. He's 8 years old, and when lockdown was lifted and he was allowed to go to school, he came back really excited one night and he said to me, "Daddy, Jacob's become a Christian today." I said, "Wow." I said, "Tell me what happened." He said, "Well, I went up to him and I said, 'Jacob, do you want to live forever?' Jacob said, 'Yes.'" Good lad. Caleb then says, "Well, if you want to live forever, you've got to become a Christian then." Jacob said, "Okay then." Caleb said, "All right then, you're now a Christian." Now, if that's his evangelistic appeal when he's 28 rather than 8, he's probably oversimplifying things. But his desire to see his mate saved comes from, even from an 8-year-old, a deep trust in the hope that he has in these difficult times. Today, wherever you are listening to this, may you know that as the storm batters each of our worlds, may we be like the tree. May we be rooted in that home to belong to, in community with one another, but also in the hope that Jesus brings. And may we be people who brings that hope to those around us. God bless you. I hope you're doing really well, and I hope to see you soon. God bless.